Hello, Scream Demons, and welcome to the Screams from the Basement podcast.
The scariest horror podcast on this side of the Black Lagoon, Screams from the Basement discusses the best double features the genre has to offer.
We also interview the industry's finest that make our screams become nightmares. I am one of your co-hosts, I'm Casey.
And I'm Sam the Damned, and let's get screaming.
Screaming. Sam, what is going on?
What's going on is, full disclosure, we just had about an hour worth of tech issues, but we are back, baby.
We're back, baby! We are back because I'm gonna throw them under the bus. StreamYard was the recording platform we used to use to record our podcast. They decided to jack up their price this year, $200.
Yeah.
Just completely jack up their price. So we are now trying Riverside, which I've used before. We had some tech issues trying to figure that out. We tried another one. That one was terrible too. So now we're back on Riverside. It seems to be working fine. Yeah. Listeners out there and watchers, whichever one you do with this podcast, let us know how we're looking, how we're sounding. Not like looking. We know we look like shit, but in terms of comparing us to our previous podcasts, how does it look and how does it sound? We want to know. We
do.
We do. But, Sam, we got a pretty big episode today. It's one that's been on our potential episode list for a while now. It is a Lighthouse double feature.
Yeah. We're talking about The Fog from 1980.
Yes.
Another John Carpenter movie. We've covered a lot of John Carpenter.
We've covered a decent amount of Carpenter on the show already.
Yeah. And I know I just suggested another Carpenter one earlier today.
That's why I suggested something else.
Yeah, I was like, as soon as I suggested it, I was like, oh, wait a minute. We've already covered 3 John Carpenters in 4 months.
Yeah.
We should probably spread this out a little bit more.
Yeah, and we're also talking about 2003's early aughts classic. I say classic. Darkness Falls. No, we're not even talking about Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse on this, because who wants to talk about The Lighthouse when talking about lighthouse horror? No. We're talking about The Fog and Darkness Falls.
Yeah. It's gonna be cool.
Sam, this is a fun one. Again, this has been on our list for a while. We're going to go in chronological order as we're talking about these movies. Are you ready to kick things off with one of your personal faves, The Fog?
I am. This is a personal fave of mine. I absolutely love this movie.
So The Fog, 1980, directed by our Lord and Savior, John Carpenter, written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. The Fog, if you've never seen The Fog, The Fog follows, it takes place in this coastal California town of Antonio Bay, and it is cursed by the legend of a mysterious fog that terrorizes a small town community in this JC classic. I completely messed up the plot synopsis of The Fog, but
that's okay. To be fair, there's not really a plot to this movie. It is
pirates come to this sleepy town, this sleepy coastal town, and attack people.
It's just vibes. It's straight up vibes. It's a cozy horror. Yeah.
All right, Sam. What's your history with The Fog? What is Sam Lenz's backpack story with The Fog?
So, my original, I watched the remake long before I ever watched the John Carpenter one. I do not like the remake at all. And even back in the day, I thought this is pretty bad. This is not good. It wasn't one of the PG-13 movies that I went back to, even though PG-13 horror was, for a while, all I could really get my hands on. So I kind of avoided this movie for a long time because I thought, if the remake's that bad, then the original's got to be pretty lame. But then one day I found this in Last Stop, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years, but actually longer than that. I think it was pre-COVID. And I found the Scream Factory Blu-ray at Last Stop, and I picked it up. I brought it home and I watched it, and I was like, this movie's actually really good. And originally I rated it like 3.5 stars. But then I showed it to Maria, and Maria really loved it. And it has just become one of the movies that we pop on all the time now. I was shocked when I went to log this. This is like for this particular viewing. It was only my third time logging it on Letterboxd. Casey, I've probably watched this movie 20 times since I got Letterboxd. It is almost like no, it is. It's like chopping mall levels of obsessive watching of this one. I love this movie. What about you?
Yeah, this one was pretty early on in my John Carpenter journey. Obviously, I'd seen for sure Halloween before this, and this is many of the same team members in front of and behind the camera for this movie. And yeah, I completely vibed with this movie. It felt like an adult Scooby-Doo movie.
Yeah,
And that's one of the reasons why I grew to love it right away. And then now watching it this time again, yeah, the vibes are just immaculate in this movie. It's incredible. I forgot how much Janet Leigh is actually in this movie, because
yeah.
this is a star-studded cast. Maybe Carpenter's most star-studded cast? Question mark?
It's
Yeah,
pretty big. It's pretty big.
I think
Yeah.
it's up there. I think it's up there as one of the biggest and best cast in any Carpenter movie. And yeah, this movie's just 100% pure vibes. Not much of a plot. I mean, there is a plot that happens, but it's not like a plotty movie like something like Big Trouble
Yeah.
is, or They Live, or something like that. This is definitely a pure vibe type movie.
Yeah. Yeah, you're kind of just it's almost like a hangout movie with all the like people in this town kind of all discovering what's going on in the history of their town together.
So let's jump into, like I said, let's jump into this cast.
Yeah.
Adrienne Barbeau is our lead. Stevie Wayne, who's the
Yeah.
local radio DJ of this town. The coolest place to have a radio station, too, inside of a lighthouse. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
cool is that? You have Tom Atkins as Nick Castle, like this. I mean, he's playing Tom Atkins.
Yeah,
Name
but sans mustache.
minus mustache, but with full actor director Nick Castle name.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis plays Elizabeth Williams, who's this traveler who ends up with Tom Atkins, and the two end up hooking up together because it's Tom Atkins, and of course he's going to sleep with a woman in a movie. Sam, who else? Who else do we got in this movie? We got Janet
We
Leigh.
have Janet Leigh, Nancy Keys?
Yeah, Nancy. Well, yeah, Nancy Loomis.
Nancy
Yeah,
Loomis, yeah. Which it's always a joy when she pops up in things. I love her.
I have a
and I love
confession
her in
about
this.
her. Maybe I'll say it right now.
Okay.
I watching it this time, I was like, I have a major crush on Nancy Loomis. It like just hit me all
Yeah.
of a sudden watching it. I don't know. She's incredible. She's spunky. She's fun.
She should have been the final girl on Halloween. I'm gonna
Yeah.
pull a hot take and be like, and like Maria and I were talking about this on this last watch. She should have the career that Jamie Lee ended up having. She really should.
But Jamie Lee did. Oh, we're gonna get into a thing. We're gonna get yelled at if I say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Jamie Lee
had
earned
famous
all.
parents.
She got all the stuff she's had in life because of who she is as an actress. It's not because her mom is Janet Leigh and
Yeah. Yeah.
her dad is
Look.
Who,
Jamie
who
Lee
was her dad
Curtis.
again? I'm trying to remember.
Tony Curtis.
Tony Curtis. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, Jamie Lee is a very talented actress. I think that Nancy Loomis is absolutely just as, if not more so. And it's really a shame that she wasn't, she didn't win an Oscar a few years ago.
Yeah, she's incredible. She outshines Jamie Lee Curtis in both of these movies, in Halloween and in this. I mean, I think she's absolutely incredible in this movie. You also get Sheriff Brackett from Halloween in this movie as well.
Yeah, what's his name again?
I'm trying to remember his name.
Let's see. More about,
I just wrote him down as
it's all
Sheriff
good.
Brackett.
mean, that's all you need, right? Um, Sheriff Brackett. Charles Cyphers. That's right.
Yeah.
Charles Cyphers. Yeah.
And we get Father Malone,
Yeah, Hal Holbrook.
Hal
Yeah.
Holbrook, who's incredible in this.
He's
Yeah, so
really
the
good.
movie opens with this campfire story, but before we get to that, there's this great Edgar Allan Poe quote that the movie starts with.
Yeah.
And I wrote down what it starts off with. It says, "Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream?"
Yeah. Solid opening quote for a very spooky kind of story. Like,
Yeah,
this
a
does
ghost
feel like
story
something
movie.
that Poe could have written in a way. It also kind of feels very Stephen King like, almost more so than Carpenter's later Stephen King adaptation in Christine. Like, to me, Christine is a John Carpenter movie before it's a Stephen King movie. And this almost feels like a Stephen King story that John Carpenter adapted,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
major King vibes in this. I mean,
Yeah.
small town, small coastal town.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if this thing was set in Maine, you could not convince me that it wasn't a Stephen King
Yeah.
story.
So I love this. I'm a sucker for both of these movies. Start with like setting up the urban legend of the town
Yeah.
and what's going to happen in the movie. And both, I mean, between this and Darkness Falls, both set it up in very different ways, but also get us in that vibe of the urban legend story we're about
Yeah.
to embark on.
And what's crazy is like both of them kind of start off with the urban legend or the myth or whatever. And both of these movies added those in like later into the filmmaking process. Like, John Carpenter originally didn't have that scene on the beach, but because the movie was only like 80 minutes long, he wanted a full 90-minute feature. And so he padded out the runtime with a few extra scenes, and that was one of them. And the same thing with Darkness Falls, which we'll get into. Like, that was a studio decision in post-production to add that like little thing. And I think both of these things are some of the best parts of these movies.
Yeah, they're both so much better with those
Yeah.
scenes included. And I just love that
100%.
they do it in two different ways that feel very of the time. Because
Yeah.
the '03 Darkness Falls does the complete like voiceover and has like spooky images over everything. Here it's a campfire story which feels very reminiscent of late 70s, early 80s horror.
Yeah.
Looking at
yeah.
you, Friday the 13th, is another one that starts with that type of story. Yeah, I'm just a sucker for urban legend stories. I mean, Blair Witch Project is one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
horror movies ever, and so that type of urban legend and tall tale stories really suck me in. And this one has a great one with the fact that there's this pirate ship that crashed, and now the pirates, if you see the fog, the pirates are coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jumping into my first note here, as we were talking about the cast just a moment ago, we get a John Carpenter cameo in here as he is with Father Malone. Just a very quick, brief shot of a John Carpenter in the church with Father Malone. And, I mean, pretty much right away, we see the fog roll into this town. And we get we get ghost pirates. Like, we know ghost pirates are coming.
Yep. Yep. Because isn't the first scene with them on the like it's on the boat with the three fishermen? You get all the shots at like setting up the townspeople. Boris, get down. Oh my god, my cat just stole my headphones. Anyways, yeah, you get the like all the people kind of in this town. It's very montagey, like opening credits. Also, real quick, we need to talk about the score of this movie. Because this to me is it honestly might be my favorite John Carpenter score. It is at the very least a top 3 John Carpenter score. When I am writing something spooky, it is the one I go to. Like, I love the music in this. The theme is just instantly recognizable. Yeah. You cannot convince me that this isn't John Carpenter's best score.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably in my top 3 too. Might surprise
Yeah.
you. Christine is also in my top 3.
Christine is a great score. Like, regardless of how you feel
It's
about
the
that
best
movie,
part of the movie.
the score is fucking
It's
phenomenal.
the best part
yeah.
of the movie. But yeah, the spooky vibes this has. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of cool because this is coming right off of Halloween, where he did the same, where he did the score and the directing. And I feel like he leveled up in both aspects in this movie, where I think this overall score of The Fog is better than Halloween, even though obviously the Halloween score is more iconic than the Fog one.
Yeah.
But I think that just comes from being a franchise and literally a dozen other movies using that same musical theme.
Yeah.
Tom Atkins, Nick Castle, ends up with Jamie Lee Curtis's Elizabeth Williams. Of course, the two hook up, like I said, because he's Tom Atkins and has to hook up with a woman in the movie. That was literally my note. Big surprise, Tom Atkins gets laid. Then you have Nancy Loomis, who plays Janet Leigh's like sassy assistant in the town.
Yeah.
And what is Janet Leigh's? What is she in the town?
Isn't she like the mayor?
Is she the mayor?
Yeah, let me look this up. I've always read her as like the mayor of this.
You didn't pick this up in the 25 times you've watched this in the last 3 years?
It's a vibe movie. I just vibe with it. This is the first time I've watched this with the intention of like, what does this mean?
Well, it doesn't mean anything. I mean,
no, it's a pretty straightforward ghost story, honestly. It's just
besides knowing what Janet Leigh's position is in the town.
I'm going to say she's the mayor of this town.
Sure.
She's the mayor from Jaws, but she's better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a line that I wrote down in here that I thought was so much fun. I know we're just kind of jumping around here, but Adrienne Barbeau, Stevie Wayne, has this young son. It's just her and her son, and she works like the late shift at the radio station. So she's constantly
she works like 6 to like 4 a.m. or something.
Yeah, she works like the overnight, the late night shift, mostly for like the fishermen. It seems like, and then keeping an eye on the weather.
Yeah.
Is kind of her big thing. Her son wakes her up one morning and he asks her for a stomach pounder and a Coke. I don't know if you've ever picked up on that line.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was watching this with Dakota and he loved it and he said it might be his favorite Carpenter. But we both we're like, what is that? What is a stomach pounder and a Coke? And so we both looked it up, and we came up with like 3 or 4 different meanings for a stomach pounder and a Coke.
Okay.
Because like one of them is Pop Rocks and a Coca-Cola.
See, that's where my mind automatically goes to.
We've also looked up that stomach pounder was like some sort of drink, like a peanut butter type drink. Ew. Almost like a milkshake, but not a peanut butter milk. It had like the consistency of a milkshake, but it was peanut butter.
Gross.
So a stomach
I like
pounder and a Coke.
peanut butter. I like milkshakes. That sounds disgusting.
Another thing we looked up was like stomach pounder was like doing some sort of exercise and then having a Coke.
I don't think that's what that.
I don't
kid
think
was
that
asking.
one's it either.
I'm gonna go with Pop Rocks and
I'm gonna
Coke.
think it's the Pop Rocks, but apparently Carpenter's been asked about it and he has never answered what a stomach pounder and a Coke is.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's a very Carpenter thing to do.
It seems like a 50s phrase to me. Like, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, which, I mean, that kind of adds into, like, the Stephen Kingism of it, is, like, these characters do kind of talk like they're out of the 50s. Like, this is an 80s movie that feels older than it is. It feels very classic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a classic ghost story, and and in 1980 we weren't getting a whole lot of those. I mean, this is on the cusp of the slasher boom that's about to happen. It feels a little out of place at the time.
And there are like elements of the slasher in it, like the pirates do stab people with bladed weapons, but like it's more about the haunting of the town than it is the violence.
Yeah.
Because there's no like blood in this.
No blood.
There's no...
Carpenter was trying to get a PG rating for this movie.
He didn't succeed though, right?
No, he didn't.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, this is an R-rated movie, and there are some sequences that kind of earn that. Like, when they're doing the autopsy on the fisherman that gets, like, stabbed multiple times in the face, that is a brutal effect. Like, that is a very gnarly face, that they created.
Yeah, so when they find so it's Tom Atkins and Jamie Lee Curtis that find the ship that like makes its way back to port, basically, that had
Yeah.
these guys that were attacked by the pirates on it. And there's a great jump scare in here where one of the
Yeah.
bodies, like, there's like a fake out jump scare where you think something's going to come out of this cabinet and it's nothing, and then the on the other side of the screen is when the body falls down. Great
Yeah.
fake out jump scare. Feels very, very much very Halloween in that scene.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, even the music sting that comes into it is very, like, Myers popping out of the
Yeah,
closet to stab Bob to the wall, you know?
yeah. But yeah, then they take the body to get an autopsy, and they say like this body died in water without ever touching water because it
Yeah.
has the consistency of a body that's been underwater for months,
Yeah.
and
Like, and
people
there's
just saw
salt
them the
water
day
in the
before.
lungs.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Like, so creepy.
yeah.
It's just like,
And we don't see that. We don't get to see that as an audience of how that happens.
yeah.
It's just, well, that's how these scientists and these doctors see it is,
Yeah.
oh, it's this body's been underwater for months and months, even though this guy has been seen in town within
Literally
a
hours
day or two.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Yeah, the kid carries the piece of driftwood too. Like, he finds the gold coin on the beach, and then the tide comes in, washes over it. And this is kind of a cool effect. Like, it's very old school, but, like, the water washes over, and when it comes back there's no gold coin anymore. It's just like a plank of wood that says Dane on it, which is part of the Elizabeth Dane, the ship that was, the pirates were on that got wrecked
Captain
intentionally.
Blake.
Captain Blake. I do love too that, like, the implication is that, like, the church, like, the town is behind it, but the church is almost like the spearhead of this horrible atrocity that occurred. Like, at the end you find out that the gold is literally, like, in the crucifix that's in the church. Um and I love that. But I love the kid finding the driftwood, the piece of the ship, and bringing it back, and just all the stuff that happens around that. Like, the Stevie Wayne, the Adrienne Barbeau stuff with her son is my favorite part of this movie. Like, it's the through line to all of it. This is an ensemble cast, but you were right earlier when you called Stevie Wayne the lead, because I believe that she is 100% the crux that everything else is kind of happening around.
And
Even
correct
though
me
she
if I'm
doesn't
wrong. Is she the?
interact with,
I want
huh?
to say she only interacts with her son
Really, yeah. Like,
in
she
person.
talks on the phone with certain people,
Yeah.
but that's about it. Like, for the most part, Adrienne Barbeau is
I don't
on
think
her
she
own in this
interacts with
movie.
anyone else.
Does she not have a phone conversation though with Tom
No,
Atkins
she
later?
has a phone conversation
Yeah.
with people, but in person,
Yeah, no, in
it's only
person.
her
Like,
son.
yeah, which is kind of crazy.
Because yeah,
I love that.
she has conversations with Sheriff Brackett and Tom Atkins on the phone,
Yep. Yep.
and
Yeah.
she's not even with the rest of the ensemble in the third
In the
act of the
third
movie.
act.
She has a
No.
completely different third act than everyone else.
And her
It's kind
third
of
act
incredible.
is better, honestly. Like, I love everything that's set in the lighthouse. It's such a great set. It's such a great idea. Like, the vibe of it is great. Adrienne Barbeau has a fantastic radio voice. Like, I would tune into KAB to listen to Stevie Wayne talk about the weather in the middle of the night. Like, it's very soothing. It's very cozy. I don't know.
It is. I love it. I love it. She again, she's the one that sees the fog starting to roll into town, and she can kind of let the townspeople know where the fog is. I just want to know the history of why the radio station's in the lighthouse.
Yeah.
Like, it's fascinating to me.
It's
Because the
very,
radio station almost does feel like an epicenter for this town.
yeah. It feels like a very important part. Like there's even newspaper articles of when she bought the
Yeah.
radio station. So it feels like that was an important event. Like, oh, the radio station has changed ownership. Um,
But I mean, look in terms of what a lighthouse would represent. Is a lighthouse is there to warn ships and sailors, hey, you're getting close to the coast. Don't,
yeah.
proceed with caution, basically. And
So
what is
like
the
it would
radio
make
station?
sense.
Yeah, what is her radio station doing? She's warning the
Warning about
townspeople.
weather and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. It's a very interesting idea. It's a very cool
And
idea.
it
And
just
I
looks
don't know
cool.
if it comes from anything like real. I don't know if like John Carpenter heard about a lighthouse that was turned into a radio station, thought that's a neat idea, or if he just came up with this. But like it's just kind of a brilliant concept
And
that works for
it's a
this movie.
lighthouse completely off the beaten path. There's, I believe it
Yeah.
was like 300 steps or something like that it takes to get from mainland basically down to where the lighthouse is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, the church. We talked about the church a little bit. I think the church is also such an epicenter for this town and for this movie, where I feel like both of those, even though geographically we don't really get a full understanding of where they are in relation to each other, it does feel like those are two very important points in this town. I mean, it is a small town. It's probably the only church, definitely the
Yeah.
only lighthouse, obviously, for this coastal
Yeah.
town. But yeah, it just feels like, I don't know, it feels like those are like epicenters for this town and like landmarks for it in a way. So it makes sense that the third act, both third act climaxes happen at those two locations.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
There's some incredible lighting when they get to the church. I love the church setting. I know you said you prefer the lighthouse one. I do too, just because lighthouses are cooler, and we
Yeah.
don't. I mean, churches happen in every other horror movie where lighthouses
Yeah.
are pretty rare. But the lighting in the church is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
There's these like deep blues and purples when the group finally ends up at the church, and it's just eerie and vibey.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just it's one of those sets that works. Like I love Father Malone's office. Um Everything where he's like kind of, sitting, he's usually drinking. He's usually drunk. He's like the stereotypical drunk priest of the
Yeah.
small town. I love the scene where he finds the diary where like stuff in this town just goes haywire, during a certain hour. Um, and like all of those sequences are great. Car alarms go off, the hydraulics and the gas pump unhooks and starts pumping out gas, and like a, a shift happens and like all the bricks fall out of the wall and he finds this diary in there. Like there's just there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to any of it. Like it's like, well, why is all of this happening with the fog rolling in with them? Like there's the coin that turns into the plank of wood that Stevie Wayne puts next to the cassette player, and it like makes the cassette player tell her a message from the pirates, and then it goes up in flames. Like, why does any of this happen? It doesn't really need to be explained. Like it's ghosts.
I want to say this has a very like Lovecraftian vibe to it too.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, yeah.
Like it feels Carpenter mixed with Lovecraft and King, like all in
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. It's kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different horror. And like there's nothing else quite like this movie. Like,
Nothing.
this is the only movie that is distinctly like this.
Not enough horror movies feature pirates as the villain. We need
Yeah, that
we need
too.
more pirate horror movies.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we've talked a little bit about Zombie Island being a Fulci
Yeah.
for kids type of movie, but it also feels like it was very directly inspired by The Fog. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Adrienne Barbeau's in both, too. Yes. I think there's a clear connection between those two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of pirates, Captain Blake, the look of Captain Blake is incredible. He has these glowing red eyes that are... It's hard to describe Captain Blake, but he's basically... You have the human features, 2 eyes, a mouth, an arm, 2 arms, 2 legs, the basic human stuff. But he doesn't have, like, discernible facial features, really, that you see.
Yeah, he's kept pretty shadowed.
He's kept in the fog most of the time. And then you have these dark red, just glowing, piercing eyes. Yeah. Incredible visual.
Yep. The shot with him and Malone at the crucifix at the end is just... It is beautiful. Like, that is just the lighting in that shot and just the way it's framed, and it's his fingers are kind of gnarled as they come over the cross. Like, you start to see the outline of his, like, knotted up fingers, and I love that. Like,
yeah.
But you never see enough of him to really get a good, like, idea of who Captain Blake even is.
Yeah, the movie's shot by the great Dean Cundey, of course, coming back off of Halloween. One of the great cinematographers of all time, Dean Cundey.
100%.
Yeah, shoot the hell out of a movie like this.
Yeah. When Dean Cundey shoots a movie, 2 things. A, you're going to be able to see everything that you are supposed to see in this movie. And that is something that we'll talk about with Darkness Falls too. I miss when movies were lit for, like, night scenes, but you could still see everything. You know what I mean? Everything is so dark these days, and it's like there are so many filmmakers now that are obsessed with, like, natural light, and I'm like, it's a movie. Like, there's a great story about, like, the Lord of the Rings set where, like, whoever was in charge of, like, lighting, maybe it was the cinematographer who was, like, talking about the lighting to an actor, and the actor asked, like, well, where's all of this light coming from, like, within the movie? And he just responded, the same place the music's coming from. And it's like, that's so true,
Mm-hmm.
Like, you do not have to abide by the laws of physics.
The audience is not going to ask, well, where is that light coming from?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Like, use a blue tint like they do in, like, the classics. And no one's gonna buy that it's not, like, Jordan Peele's Nope is a great example of a modern film that has nighttime scenes that you can see everything that you are supposed to within it. Like, it's not hard.
Yeah. Well, speaking of seeing things, I see The Fog as one of Carpenter's best. Sam, do you have any final thoughts? I have a few trivia pieces on The Fog, but
gosh, I don't know. Like, this is a movie that I love. I've watched it so many times, and like I said, it's hard to go on a plot beat basis because there's not really a plot. You just kind of hang out with these characters as they discover it. I just, there's something about the vibe of this one that just keeps me coming back to it. When I say I've watched this movie at least 20 times since, like 2018, 2019, like, I mean it. Like, it is just one of my favorites to just pop on, especially on a foggy day or a rainy day, or, like, if it's just any kind of gray or gloomy out, like, this is a go-to. And nothing else scratches the same itch. So, yeah, I guess that's my final thoughts on it. I love this movie. It's a 5 out of 5 for me, and I think it's honestly it might be in my top. It's definitely in my top 3 Carpenter scores. It might even be in my top 3 Carpenter movies. So, yeah.
Yeah, I also love this one. It is the perfect rainy day movie, like, of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's up there as that. I think I gave it a 4, maybe 4.5. I don't remember. I'm right in that that area. It's definitely, I mean, it's one of my favorite Carpenters. I don't know if I would put it top 3 just because that dude makes banger after banger after banger.
It's tough.
But it's incredible. Yeah, I'm giving this movie at least a 4 out of 5. A few pieces of trivia that I have. Makeup effects legend Rob Bottin plays Captain Blake in this movie. John Carpenter and Adrienne Barbeau were married at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So a married couple working together. And then at the beginning of the movie, the Coupe de Villes were mentioned on the radio, which is John Carpenter's band.
Yeah. Yep.
The Fog.
So much fun. The Fog.
All right. Well, Sam, before we jump to Darkness Falls, let's hear from our friends at Fangoria. For over 40 years, Fangoria has been the leading source for all things horror. The famed magazine is back with a vengeance every quarter with new in-depth discussions on the best contemporary horror, sci-fi, and macabre. You can use our affiliate link to save 20% on your annual subscription to the magazine, back issues, and the latest Fango merch. You can visit shop.fangoria.com/screams from the basement. That's shop.fangoria.com/screams from the basement and use promo code screams from the basement at checkout to save 20%. Thanks to Fangoria.
This is the time to subscribe because they have a great David Lynch cover for subscribers.
Yeah, you should get on that as soon as possible because that will probably start shipping here. I believe it comes out in towards the end of March, early April.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to hit mailboxes by April. So yeah.
All right, Sam. Well, let's jump forward 23 years to the early 2000s. We're in 2003. I'm 9 years old. I'm knee deep into Spider-Man and my professional wrestling love, very early professional wrestling love that year. And I do remember ads for Darkness Falls. I don't know about you. I remember ads for this movie airing on TV, being like, no, I can't watch it. And this is one of those playground movies that that kids on the playground would talk about. Hey, have you seen this movie? It's about the Tooth Fairy, and she comes to get you, and she lives in this lighthouse. And that was Darkness Falls for me.
Yeah. So this one I did not know about this one from like ads or anything like that. It's actually funny that we paired this with a John Carpenter movie because do you know how I watched this for the first time? I got this in a DVD 2-pack with Christine because it was the only way I found Christine. Like I went to
what?
I think it was like Pomida or something. Back
Pomida, shout out Pomida.
Yeah. And I was looking through the movie section and they had
Why
Christine,
is it with Christine
there. No idea.
Is Christine
no fucking clue.
Is this what was this a Sony movie?
Yeah, maybe it was. Yeah, Sony.
Are they?
Sony. Well, maybe I don't know. It was so weird because it was like terror double feature, and it was Christine and it was Darkness Falls, and I bought it because I wanted Christine. Oh, they're both Columbia. Yeah, they are both Sony. Yeah.
I'm pulling up the DVD cover here. Yeah, Dread Time Stories.
There we go, Dread Time Stories.
Christine and Darkness
Falls. That
Falls.
was the one. That was the one. So I got that at like Mida for I don't know $10 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't watch I hadn't even heard of Darkness Falls. I was like, oh okay, it's Darkness Falls, like whatever that is. And I read the back and it said Scary Tooth Fairy movie. I was like, that sounds stupid. Like, Killer Car, okay. Killer Tooth Fairy, like, nah. But then, like, curiosity eventually got the better of me. And one night, it was like home alone. I wanted something spooky to watch, but I didn't want to watch one of the movies that I'd seen already. So I popped on Darkness Falls. And that opening scene scared the living shit out of me. I was not prepared for this movie at all. Like, I remember even back then thinking the rest of the movie wasn't quite as scary as that opening sequence. But that opening sequence has stuck with me for years. And I did watch this one quite a bit after that initial watch in that like in those preteen years, before I started like moving up to more rated R stuff. Yeah, Darkness Falls fucked me up, and I like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm how did you feel this held up?
Okay, so I watched this probably I was like in middle school. Like I said, I had this friend
Yeah.
who, I feel like all of us had this friend on the playground that was allowed to watch
Yes.
whatever they wanted, and then would come on the playground and talk about the scariest shit that they've seen. And Darkness
Yeah.
Falls was one of those movies I always remember him talking about. And so we watched it. Yeah, that opening scene terrified me, and I remember like having fun with the movie, and like I remember the end scared me too at the lighthouse. Like just
Yeah.
the everything with the Tooth Fairy.
Yep.
But watching it now, we are 22 years removed.
Yeah.
I looked on Letterboxd. I've logged this 3 times since
Yeah. I
2020.
saw that.
I like this movie a lot. I think it
Yeah.
holds up way better than most early 2000s horror movies. This movie, I
agree.
think, gets a lot of crap for being in early 2000s with, like, you can't see anything. There's so much jump editing. I'm like, there's not really
There's
compared
not
to
that much.
some of the movies that came out in the late 90s, early 2000s.
The night scenes are actually lit pretty decent. There are some like moments where it's like, okay, yeah, like this could be a little clearer, but I was genuinely surprised. Like this is another one where I looked at like Maria had never seen it, and so we watched it together, and she liked it too. She thought it was a lot of fun. I like I looked at her about halfway through. I'm like, they don't like movies like this anymore. Like there's a whole sequence out in the woods that you can see everything. Like, yeah, there are some jump cuts. Those are just part of movies, especially horror movies.
It's
But,
also
like,
a movie that looks like a movie.
yes,
You know what I mean?
100%.
Like, I know
Yeah,
it's I mean, we're in '03, it's still shot on film, had a pretty decent budget for a horror movie. It's a studio horror movie. But it just, there's something about studios putting money behind original concepts like this, shot on film. It is a first-time director, but you couldn't really tell that. I mean, again, I miss where studios gave leeway to first-time directors making a decent-sized budget horror movie on film, and it looks as good as this movie looks. I think this movie looks really good.
It does. It looks amazing. And honestly, the Tooth Fairy design is so
It's really
fucking
good.
cool.
It is really good.
This movie kind of reminds me of it fits right into that early aughts, like it's not a J-horror remake, but it kind of reminds me of those, of the better ones
Yeah.
in that boom. Because you've
The
got
kid,
like the
I mean, the kid in
porcelain
this,
mask
Michael feels like the kid from
Yeah.
from
from
the
the
Ring. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like, and it just the vibe of it is so. It's kind of a melancholy movie, like it involves a character who no one believes him years later. I did read that this was initially going to be more of a thriller where it's like, oh, is he behind this? And it was going to be kind of playing it mysteriously. And then the studio added like the whole Matilda Dixon backstory at the beginning. And I mean, I'm guessing the cold open, because there's no way that you have the cold open and then you say like, well, maybe he's doing these murders and maybe he isn't.
Yeah, I saw that too. That movie doesn't work.
No, I'm like,
It just doesn't.
It reminds me a lot of the like stories about the original Child's Play, how originally it was gonna be like way more focused on like Andy, and I'm glad that this one also does not do that. Like, to me, the fun of this story is that it's a fucking killer Tooth Fairy movie. Like that rules, and the Matilda Dixon backstory is just like the stuff that you want out of your freaky ghost stories, because
Yeah.
it's so heartbreaking, it's so devastating. Like, they burn her at the stake, and then the next day the boys they thought she had kidnapped and killed come back fine. Like, What?
This movie has a very Guillermo del Toro vibe.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
might have been attached to it at one point.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
For sure, Doug Jones was, though. I don't know if you know this. Doug Jones was
not.
originally going to play the Tooth Fairy. There's
Okay.
even screen tests of him in makeup as a different version of this Tooth Fairy.
Damn, that's cool. That's
And what's
really
crazy
cool.
is McFarlane Toys had their Movie Maniacs line from back then. And I have, you can't see it, but I have a Blair Witch figure from the first Blair Witch, which again was a concept that they took and made an action figure. Here
Yeah.
they took the Tooth Fairy concept, the Doug Jones one, and turned it
shit.
into an action figure. I think that the toy is just called the Tooth Fairy. Like, it doesn't say Darkness Falls, I don't believe. It's just
That
the
is
Tooth
nuts.
Fairy. Yeah.
That is nuts. That's so cool.
All right, so let's jump into this. Darkness Falls, 2003, directed by Jonathan Liebsman, who would go on to make the two Michael Bay-produced Ninja Turtles movies, Battle Los Angeles.
Yeah. The really
Clash of
bad
the
Texas Chainsaw Massacre prequel.
The
Remake.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he made a bunch of stuff under the Michael Bay umbrella. Written by John Francois, Joe Harris, and James Vanderbilt. James Vanderbilt, who would go on to work on... He worked on a bunch of movies, but most notably recently the two new Scream movies were Vanderbilt written screenplays. Darkness Falls follows young Kyle, who is haunted one evening in the town of Darkness Falls, great town name, by a local legend of the Tooth Fairy. And now, as an adult, Kyle must return to his hometown to confront his childhood fears as another young boy witnesses the Tooth Fairy as he did when he was younger. So the Tooth Fairy, I mean, the movie starts with the story of Matilda Dixon. She is this woman that they called the Tooth Fairy in this town of Darkness Falls. She would leave a gold coin under children's pillows after they lose their final baby tooth, until one day, like Sam said, these two boys go missing. The town blames it on her because they believe she is into like some sort of witchcraft, and they burn her at the stake only for these boys to return. And she then goes at the legend of the town now is she goes and visits children at night when they lose their final tooth, and if you catch a glimpse at her, if you look at her, she'll take you too.
Yep. So good. Such a creepy backstory. So sad. Like it's you just, this is a woman who clearly just loved kids, and they fucking killed her.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a Freddy Krueger where it's like, well, he probably deserved it to begin with. Like, it's very much a like, oh my god, they like brutally murdered an innocent woman, and she rightfully is pissed and put a curse on them.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that opening is needed. It's all through narration about, what happened with Matilda Dixon, and now it's an urban legend in this town. And again, of course, I love urban legend movies. This feels very, very Blair Witch inspired. Like, I tend to believe that this opening doesn't exist unless the Blair Witch Project comes out. So, yeah, I mean, I think this opening narration, if it was a studio edition, is much needed.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about... I think it's the best part of the movie is this opening like 10 minutes or so with young Kyle, who's with his mom. It's basically just him and his mom living together. He is visited by his pseudo girlfriend. Like,
yeah, like they
early
clearly
teen
have
crush.
they clearly have like a relationship. She's sneaking into his bedroom window like
At like
this is
12 years
clearly-
old.
Yeah, this is clearly a thing they've done before. It reminds me very much of like Girl Next Door. You grew up with this girl. She's been your friend forever, and
Yeah, now you're both entering into teenagehood, and you're gonna take that next
experiment
step
a little bit. Yeah, see what more there might be.
Yep. And they're both about to go to the dance together that weekend. He has just lost his final baby tooth. Yeah. And Yeah, she basically she leaves him. Caitlin, the girl next door, leaves him, and he puts it, or right, he puts his tooth under, or his mom puts the tooth under,
Yeah.
puts the tooth under the pillow, and he is visited by Matilda
Yep.
Dixon.
And he peeks. He wakes up and then doesn't close his eyes. I'm like, this is the easiest
Always
part
hide
of the
under
whole
the
thing.
covers. You,
Like,
you don't look out from underneath the covers.
no, but it does make for some really creepy imagery. And like, who doesn't remember as a kid, like, thinking, oh, if I just close my eyes and like hide under my blanket, nothing can get me. You know, like that is your sense of security
Yeah.
as a scared kid. And I love how well this movie plays on that. At least this opening sequence plays on that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, and one thing we didn't mention, if she's in the light, she can't hurt you.
Yes.
The light hurts
Yeah.
her. And if she's in the darkness, you're screwed. And so he grabs a
They play really fast and loose with that later in the movie.
yeah, they do. So does Lights Out. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Certain light, I don't know. They play fast and loose. I think the
Yeah.
opening 10 minutes do it pretty well though.
Yes, the opening 10 minutes are incredible. Like it's like you said, it's the best part of the movie,
Yeah.
and it's because it sticks to the lore that it sets up. Whereas like later scenes it muddies it quite a bit. But I never mind it. Like I'm always entertained.
Yeah.
You know?
It's still, I mean, it's a movie. It's a movie about a killer tooth fairy. Like, what do we want? What do we want out of this movie?
You want realism out of that?
Yeah. So he goes running out of his room, runs into his mom, and he's like, "Mom, there's something in my room. Like it's Matilda Dixon. She's coming to get me." So the mom goes and checks on it. Mom's toast. She's done for. He
Yep.
runs and hides in the bathroom. And again, I think the bathroom is an incredible set in this movie. So bright and like
Yep.
completely lit up. It is like the walls are completely white. There's this big like white light above him, and you get
Yep.
this incredible shot of like him in the shower, terrified because he knows like it got his mom, and she's right outside the door, and it just has the shower curtain like halfway on his face, covering him up, and it pulls out of the bathroom, and there she is, like just floating above the doorway, waiting for him to come out.
Yep. And
Terrifying.
that's the cold open. Like
Terrifying image.
so fucking scary. And then like the cops come and they're like, well, it was obviously him. Like his mom's neck gets snapped like a twig. I'm like, how
That's
do
the
you
one
expect
thing.
an 11-year-old boy to do?
That's another thing with this town, with the movie, is the town, where, like we said, they play a little fast and loose with the light kind
Yeah.
of concept. I think they play even more with how much this town actually knows.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish the town knew more about Matilda Dixon. They tease it, but they dismiss so much of Kyle and then Michael when we get introduced to him. They just dismiss so much of what they say, even though it's like hinted at that the town knows and that people have gone missing because of this.
Yeah, he even says, he's like, how many unsolved murders have happened in the last 20 years? And it's like,
And they get really silent about it.
yeah, like you would think that if that was the case, then more people would be more susceptible or more open.
Yeah,
to
and the
like,
older cop too, that is the one that picks him up as a kid. Later in the movie, is like, yeah, are we sure he killed his mom? Like, I think there's other things. Like, basically, he knows what's going on, but it's never like explored at all.
well, and it's kind of that thing where if you're looking at it from like these people are living in the real world, like a cop is not going to be like, well, this was clearly supernatural. You know what I mean? Because you can't. Like, you just can't.
No,
You know
but
what
also
I mean?
it's a
Like,
killer tooth fairy movie. The cops
Yeah.
can be like, yeah, there's a killer tooth fairy out there. I don't know.
yeah. It's yeah.
We get the 12 years later. We meet up with older Kyle now, who lives in Vegas, the city that never sleeps. There's lights all the time.
Yep.
He's taking a ton of meds to
He's got lamps galore in his apartment.
lamps galore. He has endless amounts of flashlights. He's rocking out to Closure, which is the band that's playing. That's one thing I remembered when I was in middle school watching this. I was like, yeah, it's got a banging soundtrack.
Yeah,
And there's
it's
like
got
one
a very
song,
2003 soundtrack.
but it's like one song, and then I think
Yeah,
there's one that plays in the credits too.
yeah,
But I thought
yeah.
it was like
But
throughout the movie that played like an early 2000s rock.
it's enough to make an impression, though.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. It reminds me of Blair Witch Book of Shadows. Also has a really early
Okay.
2000s soundtrack.
Okay. I still have to watch that.
We
Still have to watch that.
we'll do an episode on it.
We'll do
Probably
an
would have
episode,
paired
yeah.
well with Darkness Falls, honestly. And so now Caitlin has grown up. She has a younger brother who acts much like Kyle did back in the day, where he lost his final baby tooth, and now he sees Matilda Dixon everywhere he goes. Can only sleep for like 10 minutes at a time, and she just doesn't know what to do. She said every test in the world, every doctor will look at him, and they just don't know what to do. They think he's just basically that he's afraid of the dark and needs to overcome that. Just a very lame, like, that's the best he can come up with, Doc?
Yeah.
He's afraid of the dark?
It's so weird. Like, I feel like, on top of the fact that like their parents are never brought up, like, is she taking care of her, like she's the sole caretaker of her little brother, that's never brought up, like that situation.
I mean, they never explain what happens with Kyle's dad either.
Yeah, like it's just very much a like the characters you see are the only characters.
Yeah,
it's very strange in that sense.
Feels like something that was cut out in either the editing or in 3 different script writers.
I was about to say this one was definitely meddled with the studio. Like they tampered with this thing a lot. So
I mean, the movie's runtime is an hour and 15 minutes before the credits.
Yeah. Which I love. I mean,
I do
you
too.
know me. I dig a short movie.
I forgot how short it was.
Yeah, it's very short. But like it kind of
it tells the entire story in that
it does. It's just always going. Like you get the whatever the 20 years later, 12 years later, you get him back to the town. He immediately goes and talks to the little kid. And then there's the scene at the bar where like the drunk assholes decide to bully him and like
Angus
throw him
Sampson.
out. Yeah.
From Insidious.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, he ends up at the bar with Larry the lawyer, who is now sort of dating Caitlin now.
Yeah.
And
there's a weird love triangle.
Yeah, he ends up being Kyle's lawyer. It's not really much of a love triangle. Even Larry's like, well, she's still in love with you. You know, you haven't seen each other since you were 12 years old. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
It's so weird.
Yeah. Kyle gets in a fight with Angus Sampson, who plays like this drunk redneck in the bar.
Yeah.
Mixed with like, because Kyle still starts seeing like Matilda in the dark because he's back in this town. Yeah. And there comes like the early 2000s editing. It's a little much.
Yeah. But it can be. It's very. I know. Saw came out the year after this.
It's not 13 Ghosts.
Yeah, it's not 13 Ghosts. At least that's true.
13 Ghosts is the worst at it. I like that movie, but god damn, that editing makes my head spin.
It gives you a headache. Yeah.
Yeah. So Angus Sampson is killed out in the woods. Pretty funny. I think there's a decent amount of comedy mixed in this movie too. Like Angus Sampson's body falls down onto Larry the lawyer's.
Yeah.
And like knocks him down. There's a part later in the movie where Larry's like, I had a body fall on me today.
Yeah. Larry's actually a pretty funny character. I like Larry a lot. Yeah.
Kyle gets put in jail. They believe he did it. He ends up in jail twice in this movie. I kind of forgot. He ends up in jail, lawyers up, gets out of jail, then ends up back in jail again for an action sequence.
Yeah. And the jail action sequence is pretty darn good.
It's really good. I think it's really good.
Yeah, it's solid.
So this is where they're gonna put Michael in this like sensory deprivation tank, which is only an MRI machine, and because they apparently couldn't come up with a way to do a sensory deprivation machine.
Yeah,
It's just an MRI
it's
machine.
literally an MRI machine, which
Yeah.
is so funny because I'm like, that is not sensory deprivation, like, at
Yeah.
all.
And then Kyle gets out of jail and like demands Larry to take him to Kyle. He does not. He's like, no, we're getting you away from them as much as possible. And then they're attacked by Matilda out in the woods. Matilda ends up getting Larry. Poor Larry dies. R.I.P. Larry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gets picked up and like slammed to the ground and then dragged like into the woods. Kyle ends up back at the hospital, and basically the doctor's like, okay, I'll just let Michael go, I guess.
Yeah.
Just really easily lets him go.
And that's when he gets arrested again, right?
Again, yeah, because the cops just show up right after that
Yeah.
and arrest him because he has a gun pointed at the cop or at the doctor.
At the doctor, yeah.
Yeah, so he ends up back in jail, and then we get this really fun action sequence in the jail where he's still locked in the jail cell, and all the power goes out, and Matilda's
and there's like
there.
one flashlight beam trained into the jail cell on him.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a good sequence. I think it's a really fun sequence.
It's a lot of fun.
Matilda starts picking off the cops one by one. She like starts tossing them throughout the police station. They go through like glass and tables, and it's just fun. It's a fun action sequence in this horror movie where she's just picking people off one by one, and it's added to the suspense of him being locked in that jail cell still, with that one flashlight beam pointed at him. Of if that goes out or someone knocks that over, he's dead too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's very suspenseful, and it maybe not quite as effective like as far as scare wise now, but like as a kid, like that sequence was one of those like, oh my god, I was glued to the TV, like shit, what's gonna happen,
And then Kyle teams up with like the town sheriff, who's then believes him because he saw the tooth fairy now. So they're gonna make their way to the hospital, and that's where we get another really fun sequence where you have Caitlin and Michael who are like hiding under his bed, and like Matilda lifts the bed up into the air and like starts chasing him down a hallway.
Yep.
Ends up with Kyle like pulling out a flare onto Matilda and scaring her away. I think this is really fun, but it's not. This act should have been longer. It's my one, probably my biggest complaint is I wanted more of this stretch of the movie where they're in the hospital. Because I think all the stuff in it works really well, just goes really fast.
Stairwell sequence?
Yeah, the stairwell sequence is great. There's a scene where after Kyle rescues Caitlin and Michael, you have the doctor and the two nurses there as well. And they're like, okay, we're all getting out of here. And there's a sequence where there's this hallway and there's like 4 lights in the hallway. And they have to run to each light before she catches them.
Yep.
But she like just picks off 2 of them right away. And it doesn't even show Caitlin making it through there.
No.
It just cuts to them.
They do a weird cut, and all of a
out,
sudden her and the brother are running.
Yeah, running on the other side of the room, like out of the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is what it is. I love the stairwell sequence where
I just wish they would have built the suspense longer. I think they had a really good scene. They should have kept going with it.
Yeah.
Same with the stair scene. Like that's another where at the end of the steps are the lights, and they basically like you can't run down the steps fast enough. You got to just jump
and hope she doesn't catch you.
And hope she doesn't catch you.
She does.
Yeah.
I love, because I mean, if you've ever been in a stairwell where the lights are out but the emergency lights are on, that's all you see are the landings. Like, yeah. Fantastic sequence. I do agree. I wish it was longer. I wish they built it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because we go directly from the hospital to the lighthouse then. And it feels like the hospital should have been more of that second act. But we just kind of jump directly into the third act, and the third act is only like 10 minutes long.
Yeah, I remembered the lighthouse sequence being a lot longer than what it was.
I remember the lighthouse being in this a lot more than it is. It's a cool setting still, obviously.
Yep.
And they built up like, hey, that's how we defeat her. She needs to have enough light to destroy her, basically.
Yeah.
And where are we going to get the most light in our town? The lighthouse.
Yeah.
Again, where they play fast and loose with the light, they're driving in the car. And they pull the cop out of the... Right? It's the cop, right?
Yeah, she pulls the cop out of the windshield.
Car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is what it is.
It is what it is. We had a... It's not the cop. It's the doctor.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, the cop is there in the third act in the lighthouse.
Yep, that's right.
And basically, they're going to make their way up from the bottom of the lighthouse to the top, and they're going to light the light up when the right time is to shine it on her.
Yeah.
And I think there's a really good visual in this is when Kyle and the cop have to make their way back down the lighthouse because the kerosene is leaking, and they got to plug that up before they can light it up. And you have this sequence where you have Caitlin and Michael looking down at them, and you just see Matilda flying in the background outside of the windows of the lighthouse. Incredible stuff. It reminds me the most of the fog during that shot there. I think it's a really terrifying shot.
Yep. Agreed. 100%.
And then Matilda ends up killing the cop. So we're down to Kyle, Caitlin, and Michael, and they need to survive and get the light turned on to destroy Matilda.
Yeah. And they get the light on, and it doesn't quite kill her. Like, she comes back even with the light.
Yeah.
And so he literally, Kyle is, about to get his neck snapped by her, and he just, reaches over and lights his own shirt on fire and then shoves it in her face. And she just, goes up.
Blows up.
Yeah, she literally blows up.
He did dip his arm was dipped in kerosene earlier in that scene.
Yes, that is true. So,
he remembered that his arm smelled like kerosene.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shirt. It's flammable anyways, but sure.
Yeah. He gets to say a one-liner.
Oh, what is the...
I see you, bitch.
Yeah, that's right.
And then lights her up, destroys her. Her mask during this final scene falls off. She's been wearing this glass porcelain mask. It's revealed it's made of teeth.
Yeah, when it shatters and it just becomes teeth.
Teeth just start falling off it.
Yeah.
And then we end with a little stinger of is she gone? Are the people of Darkness Falls safe with this other young boy putting a tooth under his pillow?
Yeah.
And his mom swapping it out for a quarter.
Yeah. It's an okay ending scene. It
could have been better.
Probably doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. Needed to pad out the runtime.
Yeah.
So, Darkness Falls, or as some of the previous titles were, there was 5 previous titles that this movie could have had, okay? The Tooth Fairy, I mean, an obvious pick. Dwayne Johnson would take that later on. Don't Peek, another decent title.
That's a good title.
That's a good one. Fear of the Dark, that one's kind of lame.
Yeah.
Tooth Fairy, The Tooth Fairy, The Ghost of Matilda Dixon. That feels like the straight-to-video sequel. Yep. And The Tooth Fairy, Every Legend Has a Dark Side. Again, feels like I'm pretty sure that's the tagline of the movie.
Yeah, that seems bad. That's a bad title.
Yeah, it's not a good... I mean, there's another tagline for this movie that's pretty horrendous, too. It is, an eye for an eye, your life for a tooth. Pretty terrible. It's pretty terrible.
Oh, God.
An eye for an eye, a life for a tooth. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, Darkness Falls, 2003. Sam, how many teeth masks are you giving Darkness Falls?
I give Darkness Falls 3.5 out of 5 teeth masks. I almost bumped it. I'm thinking about doing away with the half a stars in my rating system.
Which way would you bump this up or down?
I would bump this up. I would bump this to 4. I really would. I do genuinely like this movie. I think that it is think it's overhated. I think that it's a very effective movie when it wants to be. I think it's silly and I think it's dumb, but it's also like silly and dumb horror is kind of my bread and butter.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite movies of all time is Chopping Mall. I love the Friday the 13th series. Like those types of movies have merit and value too, and this is kind of in that vein, I feel like. Um I don't know. I think this is a really underrated flick. I like it. I'm just gonna give it 4. I'm just gonna give it 4. 4 teeth masks. What about you, Casey?
All right, fuck it. I'm giving it 4 too.
Yeah.
Bumping it up. Yeah, I gave this a 3.5. It's been sitting at 3.5 since 6th grade. But yeah, today on this podcast, bump it up to a 4.
Yes.
I think this movie holds up incredibly well.
Yeah.
I want to see like Scream Factory give this a proper
Yes.
Blu-ray release, special features, include Doug Jones's makeup screen test, include deleted scenes. I want the hour-long Darkness Falls documentary.
Yep.
I want all that stuff. Give it to me, because I think all this has is a DVD release. I don't even know if it's on Blu-ray at all.
I do not believe so. I really don't think
I have
it
the
is.
DVD, but I don't think it's on Blu-ray at all.
Yeah, it needs an upgrade on physical media for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this movie. I think
I do
it's
too.
fantastic.
I don't own it on VHS, and I feel like I need to remedy that now.
Be a good one to find on VHS. This is also one that I'm like, I would not hate. I feel like there are things you could do with a remake.
It's prime for a remake.
It really is. Like
Should we make it? Should we make it?
We should write a Darkness Falls remake because it deserves
or a Darkness Falls requel.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. Bring back discount Ryan Reynolds for it.
He looks so much like Ryan Reynolds and Andrew Garfield had a baby together.
Yes. Oh my god, yes. No, and he's not as bad as everybody says he is in this.
I think it's I remember him being much worse. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. Like we were watching it and like I was like, and I even said before we started it, like I remember the lead of this movie being really bad, and we were about like 15 minutes in. Maria's like, I don't think he's bad.
No,
like, I think he's doing fine.
Yeah, he's doing just as good as Ryan Reynolds would have done.
Yes,
in 2003.
Maybe even better because I've seen the Amityville Horror remake.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All
right.
It's okay to dunk on Ryan Reynolds. He's a fucking millionaire, so.
Yeah, don't buy Mint Mobile.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who has Mint Mobile. Like,
Me
I don't
either.
think Ryan Reynolds uses Mint Mobile.
No,
come on.
Ryan Reynolds definitely doesn't use Mint Mobile. Like Mint Mobile, it's got to be a shell company. Like it's got to be. Like
it's funding his gin.
Yeah.
Somehow, I don't know.
Mint Mobile is a gin company under the guise of a mobile company.
Yeah. He's got to pay for a lawsuit somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, moving on from that. Sam, this has been our Lighthouse double feature with The Fog, Darkness Falls. This was so much fun. I think they do pair well, very, very well together. I think they're so much fun to pair as this like small town urban legend movies that both center around a lighthouse.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Well, Sam, who do we got to hear from now?
Well, we get to hear from our good friends at Turp Boys. Are you looking for that extra buzz while watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? How about melting your mind while watching a David Cronenberg movie? Well, Turp Boys Delta 8, 9, and THCA gummies, vapes, chocolates, and more has you covered. This plant-based product is made from the purest organic hemp-based extracts, and it's backed by third-party laboratories. You can visit buyturpboys.com/screamsfromthebasementpod and use the promo code screamsfromthebasementpod at checkout to save 10% on your order. Thanks, Turp Boys.
Thanks, Turp Boys.
Turp Boys supporting the Basement Boys.
What else do us Basement Boys got to do on this podcast?
Casey, we've done one thing together that we'll talk about, but also, what have you been doing lately, man?
I have a couple movies that I've been to be doing. I watched the Best Picture winner, Anora. I'll talk very briefly about it. I loved it. I know we've had our discourse about who should have won, if it should have been Mikey Madison or Demi Moore. I'm still on the Demi Moore train because Mikey is she's like 25, 26, like she's super young. She's going to get plenty of award nominations in her career. I feel like this was like the culmination of Demi Moore's career doing The Substance. For that, I would have given it to her, but goddamn, Mikey Madison is so good in Anora. Anora is incredibly funny, incredibly heartfelt. Yeah, I need to catch up on Sean Baker movies. I've only seen the one he shot on an iMovie. Or on an iPhone. Tangerine. That's the only one I've seen.
Can I confess?
Yeah.
Never seen a Sean Baker movie.
Yeah.
And not that I don't want to. I
think you would like
I've never seen
his style. I think you would like his style.
I'm excited to see Anora. I will not lie. I'm pretty burned right now by it.
You can't blame that movie for it, though.
I know I can't blame that movie. I mostly blame Amelia Perez. Fuck that movie. Anyways.
Okay. I'm never gonna watch that movie. So.
No, me either. Absolutely.
Yeah, Anora's incredible. If you haven't watched it, go check it out.
Is it just an update of Pretty Woman, or is it better than that?
It's not just an update of Pretty Woman.
Okay.
No.
Good to know that all my
it has
shit
more to
is
say
wrong.
than what I like Pretty Woman. It has more to say than what
Pretty
Woman did. Yeah.
I mean, I figured as much, but I've been roasting it online as just like, stay at home and watch Pretty Woman.
No, it's Mikey Madison over
Julia Roberts.
That's
fair. That's fair. It is cool. I will say this. It is really cool that a Ghostface has an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's fucking rad.
First of many. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Jack Quaid looking at you.
Oh, God, I hope so. One day, right?
One day. Novocaine, maybe. I'll save our crossover for last. And then I rewatched a couple of my favorite 80s movies. Gave them both 5 stars because they're incredible and I love them so much. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I feel like I watch this a couple times a year, even if I don't log it. I just love this movie so much. It is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It is incredible. It's a classic. Watched it with Dakota, and afterwards, he had seen it before, but afterwards he's like, yeah, I like that movie, but that is totally a Casey movie, down to how they spell clowns.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And then watched Return of the Living Dead. I'm not going to say much because I really want us to do this on the podcast. I love this movie so much. I think it's one of the best zombie movies ever made. Send more paramedics.
I would like to rewatch this sometime because I watched it by myself on like a Saturday afternoon, and I didn't vibe with it too much. I found it a little repetitive, but we've talked about how it would be a very good choice for a late night. Yes, and I do not disagree, especially with the following that it has. Yeah. And I would love to see this with a crowd on the big screen because I feel like that's the way to see this movie.
Yeah.
So
who doesn't want to watch Linnea Quigley's Graveyard Dance on the big screen with a bunch of strangers?
Yeah. Won't be awkward at all.
I don't think so. And last but not least, a movie we both watched in the theater, Mickey 17, the latest from Bong Joon-ho, starring Robert Pattinson and Mark Ruffalo as a charismatic leader whose followers wear a red cap and hang on to his every religious nut job word. Yep.
Not ringing any bells at all.
No.
None whatsoever.
None.
Yeah, I fucking love this movie. It's right up there with The Monkey as a favorite of the year. And it's not really horror, so it probably will not end up on my top 10 list.
It better not. Podcast. This is not horror at all.
It's not horror at all.
Complete sci-fi. Yeah.
But if you ask
the qualities of it makes sense why us horror nerds would watch this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's got cute little fucking critters in it. Like, oh my god, I love them. Um, Robert Pattinson is fucking incredible in this movie. I love Robert Pattinson in
He's so
this movie.
funny in this. He
He's
plays
so funny. The
two
physical
versions of
comedy that
himself.
he has, like, oh god.
Two completely different versions of the same person. So funny.
Yeah. Just fantastic. All the supporting cast members are great. Stephen Yeun plays like a perfect asshole. Like,
Yeah. I also just watched the first 2 seasons of I Think You Should Leave, and Stephen Yeun is in that, who needs to learn how to wipe his asshole in that one.
yeah. Oh god, yeah. Mickey 17 was
Mickey
a
17
big
rules.
win.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I've heard it's not doing super well at the box office. So if
It
you're
was
listening
number
to
1,
this,
right? Like,
I thought so, but like I think that because of the budget, it's, you know, I don't know. But if you are listening to this and you have not seen Mickey 17, it is worth going and seeing on the big screen
yeah.
because it is pretty fucking fantastic. I thought I misread the runtime of that movie before I went, and I thought that it was an hour and 17 minutes, and I thought that is insane for a Bong Joon-ho movie. But I was like, I don't know, maybe he wanted to make a short,
You want to
little
make Darkness
pulpy
Falls.
sci-fi, yeah. And we were about an hour and 17 minutes into the movie, and I leaned over to Maria. I'm like, I think I read the runtime wrong. It is indeed 2 hours and 17 minutes, but I will say for a 2 hour and 17-minute movie, it flew by for me.
It does.
Like it's yeah, fantastic. I love it. So.
Well, that is it. Sam, what about you? What have you been doing?
I went to the theater a few times. I went to Mickey 17. Maria and I did a date to Heart Eyes, the new Chris Landon, Michael Kennedy written slasher directed by Josh Rubin. It is a mashup of it's like a rom-com that just happens to also be a slasher, with 2 very charismatic leads with Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding. I liked this movie. I didn't quite love it. It might be the first Chris Landon project that I'm just not super hot on. And I do think that maybe I'll come back to it next year around Valentine's Day just to see if, I don't know, like it's got the Valentine's Day vibe to it. I just felt like there was a lot of missed opportunity in this movie. And I wish I just liked it a little bit more than what I did. I didn't think the comedy all hit quite as well as it wanted to. And I think it plays the rom-com elements a little bit too broadly. Like it's bordering on like almost scary movie level parody of rom-coms, but it never quite goes far enough. And like it's a very weird, like as broad as it is, it should be like a scary movie level parody, but it's not. And so it's just, I don't know. I found myself at odds with it a lot while I was watching it. But I also know that a lot of people are like, it's a perfect blend of slashers and rom-coms. I'd like to give it a revisit in February next year, see if I change my tune on it a little bit more. I still do recommend it because I did have fun watching it, but it was more of like a 3, maybe 3.5 for me, than like a, oh gosh, this is like an instant classic type of thing. Like My Bloody Valentine's still the end all be all of Valentine horror, you know? But yeah, that was Hard Eyes. I also, to my surprise, I watched the new Captain America movie. I did not have a lot of big, high expectations for it. I really wanted to like it, but did not necessarily go into it expecting to like it. And I liked it quite a bit. It was good. It kind of reminded me of Phase 1 Marvel, where it was more character focused than action heavy. It's definitely trying to be a little bit of the Winter Soldier, and it's not as good as that movie. But like, I really like Anthony Mackie in this role, and I really think that he makes a strong case for being a figurehead of the MCU moving forward. Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross is like weirdly like he seems happy to be there, which is not something that you say about Harrison Ford much these days. Um, and my favorite part about it is this is totally a stealth sequel to The Incredible Hulk from 2008. And that is fucking awesome. And that's all I'll say about that. The marketing spoiled the Red Hulk stuff. The Red Hulk stuff doesn't come in until the third act, but it's fucking awesome. It's really cool. Like,
I'm gonna guess a few other characters from that Incredible Hulk come back.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There was one character in particular that when I realized, like, oh, they're doing, yes, that character. When I realized, like, oh, they're doing this, I loved it. I loved it so much.
I feel like we're 2008 Incredible Hulk's like biggest fans.
Yeah, we're definitely.
We played it on that.
I love that movie.
We played
so
that on
much.
that MCU countdown, didn't we?
Yeah, and
like
I'm
pretty
pretty sure
high.
we played it in the top 10. Yeah, we might have even played it in the top 8, and I have no regrets about that. I genuinely think the Incredible Hulk is
it's incredible,
fucking awesome. Yeah. So, yeah, Captain America: Brave New World. It's not perfect. It's got some issues. It's still got some of those like Marvelisms that I haven't quite. I don't know, but like the stuff that I liked about it, I really liked about it. So
I'm gonna have to play catch up because I know an Avengers movie I think comes out next year.
I think so. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll catch up.
Thunderbolts looks decently entertaining. I don't know. I'm not like back on the Marvel train, but like I'm at least
side tangent. Isn't the Thunderbolts because of Thunderbolt Ross? Wasn't Red Hulk like the one that started the Thunderbolts? And that's why they're called the Thunderbolts?
Yeah, it might be.
Right? It's so weird that it wouldn't include the Red Hulk in that then.
Well, and maybe that's why it's coming, because it's coming out like in a few months. So I wonder if like May, those two will directly tie into each other. Because
also like this Captain America movie was reshot like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and there are times where you can kind of tell that, where like you're like, okay, there are seams here. And that's what I mean by like the movie isn't perfect. But like as far as entertainment goes, like I was very much more entertained by this than I have been for most of the Marvel movies post Endgame. This one just felt pretty, I don't know. It kind of felt like classic Marvel, at least in parts to me. And I appreciated that. So I recently checked a horror staple off of my watch list. Thanks to Joe Bob, the new season of The Last Drive-In just started. They played the 1925 silent version of The Phantom of the Opera with Lon Chaney. That movie fucking rules, dude. Like it's so good. The imagery is so iconic. Like I love that there are some color sequences in it. I was very shocked by that. And the color sequences, like, they have a purpose for being in color and they are gorgeous. Like I really, really like this one. It's one of my favorite Joe Bob episodes. I fell asleep about, I don't even think I made it to the first movie section. He played opera, Dario Argento's opera afterwards.
He's doing double features again?
He's doing double features again. And I think he's only doing like one double feature a month. But they said there's still going to be 30 movies covered this year. So I think we'll get more specials where it's like marathons, which I'm kind of excited for. But yeah, I fell asleep before opera even started playing. But what I saw was like, it was one of my favorite Joe Bob episodes in a while. I had a ton of fun with it and I fell asleep, and it was a good thing too, because the next day I woke up and I went to Des Moines for, this isn't a horror thing, I just wanted to talk about it. I went to Folk Fest of the North, which is a European metal tour that had Nini, which is like a Japanese folk metal musician, Trollfest, which is a Norwegian folk metal band that currently in their current incarnation dresses up like a bunch of flamingos on stage, and that was a party. Enciferum that are like a folk Viking metal band from Finland. Those guys, they've got a keyboardist that looks like a real estate agent, but he sings like fucking Ronnie James Dio. It's fantastic. And then the headliner was Korpiklani, who are like a Finnish, like they're kind of jaunty pirate metal. Like, I don't know. They were so good. The whole night was a party. I reconnected with one of my high school buddies for it. I hadn't seen him in 11 years. And it was so much fun. He was actually like, when I talk about like going over to friends' houses and watching horror movies, like this is the friend I'm always referring to.
This is the friend that called you a weirdo for having the Shining VHS in your backpack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was really cool to get to reconnect with him, and we talked horror, and we hung out and we went to a metal show, and it was a blast. So yeah, any of those bands, check them out. They're fucking fantastic. And then I'm continuing to watch Yellow Jackets, and it's becoming more like, it's better than these shows, but it's getting to the point where the writing is more on par with like the trash TV that I like to watch, like the Pretty Little Liars Original Sin or the Amazon I Know What You Did Last Summer. The performances and some of the direction are like way better than any of those shows. But like, man, the writing is kind of hit or miss this season, like really bad. And some of it's still very intriguing, but like there are some choices where I'm just like, what are we doing here? But I'm enjoying it. So yeah. I'll keep watching Yellow Jackets, and I still implore anybody to jump on board, because like honestly, I don't know where the fuck this show is going anymore. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Can I? Because this reminds me of that. Like, I feel like maybe this show's going into like maybe Buffy territory a little bit, in terms of trying to serialize a story for maybe longer than it might might need to be.
Yeah, 100%. This should have been like a 3-season show, and they're talking about how they have 5 seasons planned. And I'm like, I don't think you had a 5-season plan given where season 2 ended and where season 3 is gone. Like, it feels like you've thrown out the plan somewhere along the way.
But I bring up Buffy because I want us to talk about this before we wrap up. We lost Michelle Trachtenberg since we last recorded, and I mean, this one hit me in the feels because
it was tough. Yeah,
she was someone that like I feel like I grew up with, and it's first. I think Keenan Thompson might have said something in his post where she's like the first Nickelodeon star gone, and like that's crazy.
True.
That's crazy. And I mean, she went on to obviously be in Buffy. She was
17 again.
Black Christmas.
She did Truth or Scare.
Eurotrip. Like,
yeah.
So much stuff from the late 90s to the early 2000s and beyond. And just horrible loss. And yeah, maybe we need to find a way to do some Michelle Trachtenberg movies.
I would cover the 2007 Black Christmas in honor of Michelle Trachtenberg, and I would be as nice to that movie as I possibly could. That might
maybe this Christmas we'll do that.
Yeah,
maybe.
Because Michelle Trachtenberg is a fucking icon, and it sucked to see that. It really did. It was a tough day. So,
on that note, well, let's wrap up this podcast. Thank you all for listening to Screams from the Basement. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram. We are also on Threads, sort of. We're there.
Kind of.
I don't know.
Threads is so
I don't think anyone's
dude.
using Threads. I don't know.
No, I'm not using. I use it to post like our Bad Signal episodes, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people just share the Instagram stuff to Threads, and that's it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We're on there if people want to follow us. We're also on Blue Sky, more active on there. We're back on TikTok.
Yeah.
We're going to give that another go.
We're
It feels...
try.
We got rid of it because we thought it was just going away, and now it's back, and who knows?
I don't know. We're dirty whores that are gonna make content on it because we need to. So
also, it does a decent job of editing reels for other stuff that we actually use.
Yeah, it does. It does. I've tried to use the Instagram reel stuff, and it's just not.
It's not good. It's not very good. So we're back. We're back on the TikTok. Sam, where can they find this podcast?
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube if you like that video component with your podcasts. Hit that subscribe button. Like the videos, comment, leave 5-star ratings if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. It helps us get bumped in the algorithm, and it just helps more people find the show. And that's what we want. We want people to find the show because we like talking horror with people. We love being on the Discord channel, which you can find in, I'm guessing, show notes, right? Did we put them in the?
No, I should put them in the show notes. They are in our link tree. If people
they're in our link tree. So,
but yeah, I'll put that in the show notes from now on. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Our Discord is so fun. Like, we're always popping off about horror movies and having conversations, and sometimes we'll even post in there like times that like we're going to movies and we'll all meet up. Like, I mean, we did that for Mickey 17 and that was a blast. So yeah, we like connecting with people. So help us connect with people. Tell your friends about us.
Also, you can check out our TeePublic store if you want to pick up some Screens from the Basement merch. You can buy our logo. You can buy some of the original artwork from Sam. You can buy tons of fun stuff. Just again, that link is in the episode description and on our link tree. You can find us on TeePublic, and you can join us on Patreon. Patreon, you get some awesome bonus episodes, and you get some bonus content starting at $1 a month and making your way up to $5 a month. $5 a month, you get a monthly bonus episode. Sam, we got to decide what we're doing for the month of March.
We do.
I don't know.
I also have to write a couple of reviews for this month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can check out some weekly vlogs on there as well, some bonus content on our Patreon, and every bit of the Patreon goes to help support the show and helps us support us as we are launching the Screams by Night halfway to Halloween Con. We're just about a month away from this, April 26th. 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Social in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We have already announced one of our big guests. We have over 24 vendors coming. We have the South Dakota Ghostbusters, Sioux Falls Krampus. We have announced about a month or so ago that Mark Torgel, Melvin the Mob Boy from the Toxic Avenger is coming. Sam, we can announce the other two people that are coming.
Oh my God, we can.
We can.
Yeah. We also have Mark Donovan from Shaun of the Fucking Dead coming to Sioux Falls. If the name does not strike a chord with you,
you know the scene he's in.
You know the scene he's in. He's the zombie that gets death by records. And super nice guy. Casey and I have met him before. And
he gets dire straits to the face.
He gets dire straits.
I don't know. I think it's right. They're mentioned in that scene. I don't know if it's exactly that record. But.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So he's super nice. Casey and I have met him before. We're very excited to have him at the con. And Casey, who's the other special guest that we have coming?
Yeah. So he is already coming to town on tour. At Club David from our friends at Bat House Events. It is Voltaire, musician, actor, writer, director, man of many trades. Voltaire is coming to Screams by Night halfway to Halloween Con on April 26th. And then he's going to be doing a concert at Club David that same night. So everything just kind of worked out perfectly with that. And again, Voltaire, if you met Hannah Fierman at SuperCon last year, she might have talked to you about a movie she stars in called The Demonatrix.
Yeah.
Demonatrix.
Demonatrix,
yeah. You get it. You get what I mean. But she stars in that with the film directed by and also starring Voltaire. And you might recognize his song Brains from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, which is where I know him from. So Yeah, it's going to be a good time. He'll be hanging out at the Screens by Night Con alongside Mark Donovan and Mark Torgel, the two Marks in Voltaire, hanging out at Screens by Night. So many more announcements still to come for the convention. Mm-hmm. Tickets are available now. You can find that in the episode description as well. Only $10 to get you in. Meet over 24 vendors, our horror guests, and then we will have horror panels as well that we're going to be announcing the next coming weeks.
Yep. Exciting stuff. We hope to see you there. It is going to be a fucking party.
Yeah.
And we're very excited.
We have so many more announcements yet to come.
Yeah. We should get through those because we only have like you said, like a month.
I know. We have a whole nother event as part of it to announce yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that one's kind of not in our court right at the moment.
Not yet.
We're being very sly about this, but you're gonna find out soon. It's pretty fucking cool.
It's locked in. It's happening. It's
happening.
Again. All right. Well, we'll maybe leave with this little tease then. Sam, our next episode, we have an interview coming out next week with Joe Lamb, director of The Fetus, starring Lauren Lavera from Terrifier 2 and 3, and Bill Moseley. So be on the lookout for that. And 2 weeks from now, we're talking Rawhead Rex and Psycho Goreman. Rawhead Rex will be playing at the Sioux Falls State Theater.
March 21st.
21st? Is that what it is?
I believe so, yeah. That's the Friday, right?
Yes, March 21st. Yes, will be Rawhead Rex, and then we'll be doing a double feature with that and Psycho Goreman. So get your tickets, still available. We'll be doing a full intro for that as well.
Hell yeah.
All right, Sam, why don't you go ahead and give the peeps that sign off.
All right, everybody. As always, thanks for tuning in. And sweet screams.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.